Hello, everyone. I would like to welcome all participants to this workshop. Thank you very much for joining. We still have a number of people joining, so let's give them a couple of minutes. I just would like to ask you to keep your mics muted and the video turned off until you're speaking. So please turn off your video and microphones for now. Thank you very much. Hello, everyone, again. Thank you very much for joining. I think we can get started now. My name is Ksenia Petruchenko. I'm Economic Affairs Officer with Energy Division of ESCAP, and I will be a Master of Ceremony today. Thank you very much for joining this workshop on accelerating sustainable energy transition in cities. We have a very interesting program today, and without further ado, I would like to give the floor to Mr. Hongpeng Liu, Director of ESCAP Energy Division, to give welcoming remarks. Hongpeng.
Thank you, Ksenia. Welcome to all of you to this event on sustainable energy transition in cities. It's a great pleasure to join UNEP and the United Cities and the local government, Asia Pacific, to organize this event and share with you about our work in supporting cities in Asia and Pacific on the efforts related to sustainable energy. The importance of Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs localization cannot be underestimated, as most of the Sustainable Development Goals cannot be achieved without strong and ambitious support and implementation at the city level. SDG localization refers to adaptation or translation of the SDGs aspiration into objectives that are relevant, applicable, and attainable at the local level. Through localization, SDGs can provide a framework both for local development policies and strategies and for the local actions to support the overall achievement of SDGs, as well as to ensuring coherence and cohesion between policies at the national and the subnational levels. So this is particularly important in the Asia Pacific region as the cities in Asia Pacific region continue to grow in terms of population and economic output. As of 2020, more than half of a population in this region lived in cities, and this share is only expected to increase, driving urban energy demand and also related GHG emissions. To ensure that the gains of urbanization and development are captured in order to support the SDGs and other global development strategies, agendas, transformative changes are needed. The increasing decentralization of governance opens up the potential, increased autonomy and freedom on policy and decision making for cities, including setting their own local agenda and infrastructure investment plans. These changes will provide more opportunities for cities to prioritize an integrated approach to urban energy and to build linkages between urban subsystems of energy, transportation, urban greenery, waste management, and buildings. However, realization of these opportunities can only happen if cities and the local government have sufficient capacity to act. Local governments should be in the front stage to identify, evaluate, and give precedence to sustainable energy solutions, and to coordinate required efforts with national, regional, and international collaborators towards achieving SDGs, in particular SDG7 in this case. It's important to accelerate SDG7 localization in efficient process in an efficient and impactful manner to identify areas for action and improvement in order. It is even more important to understand the local context of each city and the efforts related to sustainable energy that have already been made. In this context, we should offer more opportunities for cities to learn from international best practices and from each other, as well as to provide the local government with effective tools to analyze the situation in the city and learn how to integrate different aspects of SDG7 into the local policy and project development. So today we will be launching 2 knowledge products. Online tool on SDG7 Localization Assessment and an e-learning program, Introduction to Localization of SDG7. So which was based on the survey of cities' needs for capacity building conducted by United Cities and Local Government Asia Pacific. So this knowledge product aim to support cities in building their capacities on sustainable energy actions in order to achieve SDG7. So we'll also discuss findings of a recent report on SDG7 localization in ASEAN cities prepared jointly by ESCAP and the UNEP, including a panel discussion about experiences from 3 deep dives who worked with ESCAP to develop their sustainable energy transition roadmaps. I'm glad to see our partners from those cities and the local government joining this panel discussion today. So we also have 2 very interesting keynote presentations from United Economic Commission for Europe, our sister regional commission, and also UNEP, on different solutions and good practices for sustainable energy in cities. ESCAP is devoted to supporting national, subnational, and local government in Asia Pacific, accelerating sustainable energy transition towards achievement of SDG7 and beyond. We have already supported a number of countries in the region on development of sustainable energy transition roadmaps and adapted the methodology to the city level needs and also prepared such roadmaps for 2 cities and 1 subnational region. We will continue these efforts to support more cities and the local government. I want to take this opportunity to thank you very much for joining us today for this very important discussion. I wish you a very successful workshop today. So with this, I would like to hand over to Ms. Banadia Yurawadi Tandra Devi, Secretary General of United Cities and Local Government Asia Pacific, to give her opening remarks. Ms. Bandaria, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Liu. Dear speakers, dear participants, very good afternoon and very good morning to all of you. I think it's really a great pleasure for me to be here and joining you virtually to discuss a very important subject, which is SDG7, localization of SDG7. If you follow this General Assembly, United Nations General Assembly, we had a lot of commitments that have been expressed by the leaders, state leaders. There's also include this carbon neutrality and the need to act now. So I really think that the commitment of the leaders are already high enough, and I think this is a time for us to act. And we also maybe let me recall what United Nations Secretary just said, that despite this COVID that have been affecting everyone, we should not lose our hope, and we are not hopeless and we are not helpless. So I think this is a strong message that despite this crisis, we need to be strong. And of course, this UN General Assembly seems to be quite also interesting. I'm sure it attracted many young people, since there are also these Korean performers, BTS, that I'm sure the armies, this is the supporters of BTS that have around 26 million normally young people. I'm very sure many of them have watched this UN General Assembly. This is a very, very good moment, and I'm sure this is also very important for young generation to be involved in the sustainable development goals, and working together with all of us, current generation, future generation, to really address the sustainable future. So, but let me also thanks all partners here, especially UN ESCAP, for very good collaboration. Mr. Liu, we have been working very closely with you and your team members, Senia and others, for developing these e-learning modules, as well as conducted a survey. This is also quite interesting to hear the commitments of the partners, including UN ESCAP, for providing more support to cities and local governments. This is also a good space for us to discuss issues and also learning from others, and take importantly actions, and showcase, of course, our experiences in making a great effort and to make our cities, of course, better. And I don't think I need to highlight here how crucial the energy sector is in terms of contribution to development and climate change. Cities are bigger contributors for greenhouse gas emissions, but we are also part of solutions. So the energy sectors contributes around 3/4 of the greenhouse gas emissions today. And of course, action taken, especially in the cities and urban areas, this is also a very important effort to avoid this worsening of climate change. So we heard the net zero targets by 2050 that also have been expressed by many state leaders. This is, of course, require concentrated efforts, and also consolidation, and also collaborations among all key partners. So towards this achieving this carbon neutrality by 2050, cities need to change. Our cities need to change, not just have any change, but to complete this transformations, it's required also how we generate, how we manage, and how we also consume our energy. And I think we have this crisis of energy ahead of us, of course. So in Asia Pacific region, Japan, China, South Korea, this stood out as the leaders with their net zero commitments. And what Director Liu said about good enabling environment, decentralization level, this really prerequisite, this is a precondition that required by local governments to act. So at the same time, we have seen the rapid momentum building at the city level globally, in incorporating and also promoting this renewable energy, especially for heating and cooling, as well as the transport sectors and those bigger sectors that we know that contributed a lot to this greenhouse gas emission. But despite these challenges posed by COVID-19 pandemic, by end of 2020, actually more than 10,500 cities had adopted already targets to reduce these greenhouse gas emissions, with around 800 cities committed to net zero emission. This is a quite good kind of a number of cities who are committed in this meeting this carbon neutrality, as well as reducing this greenhouse gas emissions. So this trend also reflects the level of interest by cities and local governments in responding to SDG7. So when we did this localization SDG7 survey, most of the respondents have already ticked. They have ticked the survey and also highlighted that they already made action. They already made several activities. So this is very important to highlight also. Moving forward, enabling cities and local governments to do what are needed to be done, we really need to advocate the importance of energy transition, sustainable energy transition actions. So we need to know and we need to listen to cities, what, where, and how they get there. So we need, of course, a strong enabling environment, like Director Liu said. Yeah, we need a good regulation, good financial options, also level of decentralization, and of course, equally important is a capacity development. So let me close here by saying some of the aspects here, like the IEA's net zero by 2050 reports published earlier in this month laid out some very clear takeaways that can determine the success of path to net zero emissions. This can also be maybe interest of cities and local government. This include like immediate and massive deployment of all available clean and efficient energy technologies. And second, scaling up solar and wind rapidly upon the renewable energy foundation of hydro and nuclear low carbon energy. And another one is ensuring just, cost-effective and transparent policies, mandates, and standards as driver for speedy deployment of clean energy technologies, as well as consumer choices and behavior change. What I think is also quite important highlight here is inclusive transition with sustained citizen support and participation, from buy-in for housing retrofit with energy efficient technologies to replacing driving with public transportation and private sector financing investment in infrastructure. And another aspect also need to prepare net zero roadmaps and how we can get there. And today we look at some of the tools and resources that can be used by cities and local governments in preparing ourselves towards this pathway. So capacity building will be a significant part of the local community's journey toward net zero targets. But we need to be open to this and actively seek for new technical knowledge and skills that will also allow us to be part of the move for innovation and new technologies in clean energy, as well as functional knowledge and skills that include also new policy perspective and incentive building and stakeholders engagement. So when cities take action and work to be better, they become the signposts. This is also crucial in encouraging more cities in the region to take similar action. So this is the story to tell, and I'm sure there are many other cities also would like to share the stories, and this is possible to be better. This is really possible. So this also they enable other regional cities to grow and prosper sustainably. So at UCLG ASPAC, we are looking forward for these champion cities. I'm happy that Mayor Kaoyan also joined in this panel. So it's clear the leadership is important. So it's also clear how important and the work that have been carried out by cities and local governments. So for increasing access to reliable modern energy, especially for the marginalized communities. So let me conclude by saying that UCLG ASPAC, as the biggest collective of local governments and cities that connect more than 240,000 in the global level, we are ready. We continue to support and working together with all of you to make that the future is really the future that everyone wants, the future that even a young generation and future generation really want. So let's hope that we can do and we can make actions now. So let's hope also that we will have a very fruitful event today. Thank you very much, Kapungka, and terima kasih. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bernadia, and thank you, Mr. Hompeng, for this very encouraging and uplifting remarks. I think it's very clear for all of us that the capacity building in cities and support from international community for SDG7 localization and other SDGs is crucial. And as Hompeng mentioned, today we are going to be talking about several tools and products which we jointly developed with our partners and of course with participation from a number of cities from the region. So we are moving to the next part of our workshop where we'll have several presentations delivered by myself and my colleague Maizura Ismail from UCLG ASPAC. If you have any questions during the presentation, you can write them in the chat box, and I hope we'll have some time after the presentations to address all of them. So with that, thank you again for opening remarks, and I will share my screen to start the presentation about the work which ESCAP and a number of partners have been doing on SDG7 localization in the region. So my name is Ksenia Petrichenko. I'm an Economic Affairs Officer from Energy Division of ESCAP. And the work which I will be talking about on SDG7 localization has been jointly delivered by ESCAP and the United Nations Environment Programme with a number of partners such as UCLG ASPAC. So in this presentation, we will briefly touch upon what is SDG7 localization, why it is important, and where can cities start and what they can do in order to accelerate their efforts on SDG7 localization. So we'll talk about methodology which have been developed during our work to support cities to understand their progress and status on SDG7 localization and identify areas for improvement. Also, we'll discuss key lessons learned from the analysis on sustainable energy efforts we've done in 20 Asian cities from 5 Asian countries. And we will launch an online tool on SDG7 Localization Assessment, which can help any city anywhere in the world to run a quick assessment of their opportunities for SDG7 localization actions. Some of the findings which we will be discussing today in this presentation are available online already in the published report. You can see the link here. It can be also found on ESCAP website. So let's start with understanding what SDG localization is. We're all familiar with Sustainable Development Goals. These are global level goals. In order for them to be achieved successfully, they need to be translated into national policies by national governments. But a lot of implementation of the actions have to take place at the local level, as we heard from Dr. Bernadia's opening remarks. So that's where SDG localization concept becomes very important and crucial for achievement of Sustainable Development Goals. This is the process which local governments should take in order to define, implement, and monitor certain strategies at the local level to achieve global goals, national commitments towards achievement of sustainable development goals. Why it is important? It has been estimated that about 65% of all SDG targets and indicators cannot be achieved without relevant actions by local governments. When we look at Southeast Asia, for example, the urbanization rate is increasing rapidly, and already more than half of population in this sub-region lives in cities. It drives final energy use also further, and that means for SDG7 that cities play a crucial role in this region, but also in many other regions in the world. Also, as we already heard from Dr. Bernadilla, cities often have autonomy and power to act themselves. They can set sustainable energy vision and targets at the local level, develop sustainable energy policies, engage and coordinate with various stakeholders, both at local, national, regional, and international levels, as well as unlock sustainable energy finance and implement integrated urban solutions at the district and city level, which we'll also hear more today from our upcoming keynote from UNEP. So what we at ESCAP have been doing for the past year and a half with our partners was really to focus our efforts on increasing capacity of cities in the region. Specifically, our focus has been on ASEAN sub-region to accelerate development and implementation of SDG7 related actions. We set up a project with 3 phases, which are really interlinked, but we started with what we call quick scan. We try to develop a methodology which helps cities to really analyze their own status and current situation on sustainable energy and identify the areas of potential improvement. So what can they do to accelerate the process of SDG7 implementation in their own local context? We will be talking a lot about this stage today because I will be sharing some of the key lessons learned from this phase and from the report which I mentioned before. On the second phase of this project, we selected 3 cities which we call deep dives to help them to develop sustainable energy transition roadmaps really tailored to their local context, to identify policy and technological options which can help them successfully implement sustainable energy actions. We will talk about these 3 roadmaps and 3 deep dives in our upcoming panel after this session, which will be moderated by my colleague Anis. In phase 3, we try to scale up the lessons learned from the previous 2 phases and really make knowledge products which will be available to any city, even those who did not participate in this project, at their own convenience, at their own pace and time. And that's how we ended up developing an online analytical tool, which is the focus of this presentation, but also a number of other knowledge products which can help any city to identify and develop and implement sustainable energy actions. So where can the city start? The process which were identified for any city to follow in order to implement actions on SDG7 localization started with data collection. With that, we developed a questionnaire, which later became an online tool in order to really engage with cities and collect the data on their status in relation to sustainable energy. With the developed methodology, we identified 7 key SDG7 localization indicators, which helped us to analyze the data and assign a score for each of these 7 areas from 0 to 100, which would reflect the level of effort and achievement so far regarding of sustainable energy actions. We will talk more about this methodology in a couple of slides. Based on this analysis, the recommendations were provided to each of the participating cities and summarized in a very concise publication, which we call SDG7 Snapshots. We had 20 cities participating in this project, and we have 20 SDG7 snapshots published. Then, as I mentioned before, we had 3 deep dive cities to work on, to do more deep dive approach for analysis of the sustainable energy situation and energy sector, which were summarized in SDG7 city roadmaps. And with our partners, especially with UNEP, we were also developing a structure for a pilot support program. So given all this data collected and engagement with the cities, how we can support cities on development of actual projects and conducting maybe some pilots in the region. So these are the 20 cities I mentioned from 5 Asian countries. I would like to thank all representatives who joined today for great work and all the inputs which you have provided during this project. I think it was a long journey, but I hope the results were very worthwhile. And as I mentioned, every city received the publication with recommendations for actions. So we're looking forward to working with all of you further. So in terms of the analysis of the results and the methodology, as I mentioned, we identified 7 SDG7 localization indicators. These are qualitative indicators based on city self-assessment, based on the data and information and answers to the questionnaire each city provided to us. But it concerns 7 main areas on policies and institutions, energy data monitoring, cooperation with stakeholders, use of financial resources, awareness raising, capacity building, implementation activities, and linkages to other SDGs. Based on the developed methodology and aggregation of data, each city receives a score from 0 to 100 for each of these localization indicators. We also have some sub-indicators which you can see on the slide. So here are the 20 SDG7 localization snapshots available on the website, which you can access once you get this presentation. All publications are available for cities to use, but also to learn from other cities, maybe in the same country or from different countries, to see how the situation is different in that context. We also analyzed all 20 SDG7 localization snapshots to see what are the key trends and maybe common lessons learned which we can identify across all 7 areas and all 20 cities. So here on the slide, you can see an average score for each of the indicators and minimum and maximum value received across 20 cities. So as you can see, the variability of results across the indicators is quite significant. The average total score across all indicators and all cities is 47, so it's below average. It's quite moderate progress across all the key areas, as we can see. Other important lessons learned is that there are quite common challenges experienced by a number of cities in this project. We saw that financial resources is one of the challenges. So cities are often committed and interested in developing sustainable energy projects, but the lack of financial resources often serves as the barrier to the efforts. Energy data and related efforts and systems are often missing in many cities, which also prevents them from developing bankable projects and aggravates the process of SDG7 localization. And of course, implementation itself is also another area which shows relatively low indicator, relatively low score, which demonstrates that support and capacity building is needed for cities in order to accelerate the implementation of sustainable energy projects. Other issues which we identified during the work with cities is that horizontal coordination and vertical integration of efforts between different levels of governance and multi-level governance approach are key in order to effectively implement SDG7 localization efforts. So working with different stakeholders, but at the city level, but also establishing mechanisms for coordinating the work with national government, regional government, reaching out to international community are key for this work. And again, capacity building on project development, integrated urban solutions, finance are some of the issues which cities reported to us. So what can cities do in terms of implementation of efforts on SDG7 localization? Here are some more detailed results on 3 key pillars of SDG7 localization. So we looked at separately on the progress on energy access, renewable energy, and energy efficiency across different cities in the countries which we analyzed. And you can see aggregated results on your slide. What we've learned is that energy access is not only a rural problem. In urban areas in this region, in ASEAN region, the power reliability and cooking, especially in informal settlements and slums, is still quite a persistent problem. Renewable energy efforts are present in many cities in terms of some policies and targets, but the actual use of renewable energy and related technologies is still limited. For energy efficiency as well, limited use of energy efficiency technologies across different end-use sectors, especially transportation sectors, is a common problem in many cities. Another aspect which we looked at is the integration of sustainable energy efforts across different cities, and it will be discussed more in a later keynote, but I just wanted to highlight that cities have the power to and the mandate to really look at a city from integrated point of view and look at different energy uses and sectors within the cities to identify what are the solutions which can be implemented in sustainable manner to capitalize on this integration of systems. So what are the key takeaways from this work? We've learned that SDG7 localization is the way for cities to accelerate sustainable energy transition and contribute to achievement of Agenda 2030. The progress in Asian cities, which we analyze, is quite moderate so far, and impactful actions are urgently needed from local governments with support from the national governments. Data monitoring, accessing finance, project implementation, capacity building, sector integration, energy master planning, and coordination of efforts across different levels of governance are crucial areas for improvement in many cities. Situation assessment, which we started working on in this project, is the first step to identify priority areas for any city, and we discussed the methodology to support it. I also mentioned sustainable energy transition roadmaps as it's a next step to identify specific action areas in terms of technological and policy solutions tailored to city context, and we'll talk more about it today. And opportunity, take action together through integrated approaches for energy transition and planning are key for any local government to take into consideration. So with all these takeaways and lessons learned in mind, we did the next step to offer an online tool, an online assessment tool on SDG7 localization, which can be used by any city at any time. It's available online, free of charge, publicly available on this website, which you can access after the workshop. And it follows exactly the same process as I lined up in in the presentation, except that when we approach cities, we used a Word document to collect the data. Here, cities can do it themselves in automatic manner, run the assessment, and get the SDG7 localization snapshot with all the visual information and recommendations at their own convenience. So you can start assessment for any city already today, create your account, and you can store different assessments. You can compare results between assessments to see how the progress is going. For example, if you want to compare results from a year before and now, you can clearly see how the different indicators are performing after implementation of certain actions. So as I mentioned, the tool is based on the questionnaire. So each city would complete the questionnaire based on their best knowledge of the local context. And after the aggregation of the answers, the SDG7 localization snapshot would be prepared online and available for use and download for 7 SDG7 localization indicators and sub-indicators, which I mentioned before. There are more specific charts to analyze and dive in on SDG7 commitments, implementation of targets, as well as a breakdown by energy access, renewable energy, and energy efficiency efforts. And of course, each of the indicators will have a tailored set of recommendations which can help the city to start the process of identifying the actions and further implementation. So with that, I would like to thank you all for listening, and I hope you will come to check the tool and spread the word if other cities would be interested in doing this assessment. We're always happy to engage with other cities and learn from their experience and support on sustainable energy actions the best way we can. Thank you very much for your time. And if you have any questions, please write them in the chat box. With that, I would like to conclude my presentation and give the floor to my colleague Mysur Ismail from UCLG SPAC to talk about capacity building activities and the study which UCLG SPAC has been doing. Thank you. Mysura?
Thank you very much, Zinia. Hi, everyone. Assalamualaikum. Good morning to some, good afternoon to some. I hope everyone is safe and well, surviving this pandemic and looking forward to re-enter into the society. Today I will be sharing the outcome, the results of the survey training needs assessment that we did in conjunction with the development of the modules. As an introduction, UCLG ASPAC is Asia Pacific's biggest collective of local governments, linking the voices and aspirations of more than 10,000 cities and local governments in the region. So, as part of the ESCAP e-learning program on SDG7 localization project, specifically the module development, UCLG ASPAC carried out a regional SDG7 training needs assessment to feed into the development of the e-learning modules to ensure that the modules that we develop are responsive to the needs and mandate of the local governments and local government association in the Asia Pacific region. The online survey was deployed in January 2021 and concluded in February 2021. We received responses from more than 53 cities, but cities, local governments, local government associations, NGOs, and research institutions. We actually received more than this, but after we clean up the data and all, we got finalized to about 53 respondents. The bulk of the respondents are subnational governments. We also have, which account to about 81%, more than 81%. And then we have research and training institutions, 14% followed by local government associations and NGOs. We have respondents from 11 countries, namely China, Indonesia, the Philippines, Malaysia, Nepal, Cambodia, New Zealand, Pakistan, Maldives, South Korea, and Kiribati. The questionnaire we sent out consists of 19 questions, including on the respondent's profile, priorities in SDGs, specifically SDG7, capabilities in localizing SDG7, and lastly on interest in undertaking e-learning course on SDG7. Today, we will be looking at some of the interesting outcome and takeaways of the training needs assessment. Here, I would like to share with you the cities that took part in our survey, in our training needs assessment. So, we first asked the cities to rank the SDGs based on local priorities. From our survey, we have found that SDG7 collectively rank 8th in most prioritized from overall 17 SDGs, which is very much in the middle. This is interesting as energy sector generally is not a traditional mandate of local governments in a lot of for a lot of cities. But however, more and more of the components from the energy sector falls under local government scope with decentralized energy system. This is also interesting because a research using a machine learning algorithm to measure the relative focus countries assigned to different SDGs in 100 VNRs submitted between 2016 to 2019 has assigned SDG7 13th, rank 13th. So you can see from here that our collective prioritization of SDG7 is slightly higher than the collective national prioritization of SDG7. We also ask the cities if SDG7 is a priority of their specific local government and SDG, and 77% of the cities responded yes. Yes. So out of this, 9 that responded as not sure, half of them are not informed, but while the other half is say that they are for their cities, the prioritization is being undertaken, currently being undertaken. So we also ask cities about what are the current SDG7 activities that are being carried out by their organizations. As Dr. Bernadia mentioned before, despite the challenges that cities are facing, cities are already taking a lot of action, carrying out a lot of activities on SDG7 localization throughout the organization and at different stages. Some of the most undertaken activities that cities are doing right now, including SDG7 integration into internal local policies, increasing share of renewable energy, and data collection, monitoring, and reporting. So, yeah. 2 cities mentioned that they are undertaking net zero and other similar initiatives. We asked the cities about the key barriers faced by cities in localizing SDG7. Similar to the outcome of the activities done by ESCAP that Zinia shared just now, lack of financial resources was ranked as the biggest barrier that is faced by cities. This is followed by data, which, as we know, is one of the key areas that is a challenge to SDG achievement of SDG overall. Also, this is followed by lack of awareness on SDG7 and localization activities under this at the local level. Towards this, under the e-learning modules that we have developed, lack of financial resource, financing of SDG7 localization is covered under Module 5. We also asked the cities, we also asked the cities about the specific technical and functional capacity building needed by them. And 34 out of the 53 cities that responded to our a survey, which is about 64%, agreed that they are in need of assistance in preparing the Sustainable Energy Transition Roadmap. This is aligned to the targeting of ESCAP, as we have recently seen the launch of the tools for Sustainable Energy Transition Roadmap preparation, in which I think this will be discussed more in the panel session. We can also see that the data management and handling and analysis is another area where cities need external assistance. What falls into this include identification of data and data sources, setting up of the ecosystem, monitoring and analysis. Under our e-learning module, we have dedicated one module to energy management, which is module 3. We also have stakeholder engagement as one of the areas where under the e-learning module, which is under the module 4 and module 6. Sorry. And we ask cities as well on other supports that they would need in order for them to be able to localize SDG7. 75% agreed that they would like to have more sharing of experience from other cities. Also, the third most selected option is easily accessible database of case studies and good practices. This is aligned with our experience in working with cities, whereby cities learn better from other cities. Cities learn better from practical experience. We also have cities saying that they need support in training leadership for advocacy at the national and international level. What we get from this is that the cities know that there are some needs that are not being served right now, and that there is a gap in getting the local narrative nationally and internationally. Cities are aware of this. Under UCLG ASPAC and partners, we do have the ASEAN Mayors Forum as well as the Asia Pacific Mayors Academy to specifically target this level of capacity building. I've included here the link, and you can see if maybe this could be of some interest to some of the cities here today. We have an upcoming Asia Pacific Mayors Academy, and the deadline for application is on 30th of September. I will share this link in the chat after this. We asked cities as well on how they prefer to learn. What is their preferred mode of learning? So from what we get, of course, there's the usual text material with some graphic and online database of best practices, as mentioned before, and pre-recorded video lectures. The self-paced presentation slides is aligned with what we do with the module development. We also have live group discussion, also quite high in the ranked of modalities or learning modalities, and peer-to-peer mentorship. And a lot of these tools and resources in learning more about SDG7 is included in the capacity building module, which is under module 6. So what are the key takeaways that we can get from the survey? SDG7 as a priority, there is a difference from what we see from the limited data that we have. There is a difference between the collective local and national priorities. We can also see that the high priority of SDG 3 on healthcare, SDG 4 on education, SDG 1 on poverty eradication, and SDG 11 on sustainable cities, SDG 6 on water and sanitation, and SDG 8 on economic growth, which largely have positive interactions with SDG 7. So in terms of like targeting by local governments, focus and attention given to SDG 7 will generally will have positive input on the other SDGs that are ranked quite high. So despite the challenges and the barriers, cities are already localizing SDG 7. Also to listen to cities are looking inwards, looking at what they need, what are the preferred learning modalities, and what are their focus. Also to listen to cities while cities are looking outwards, where they rank advocacy as high on the list of support that they need, with cities realizing that the importance of their voice in global agenda to fulfill their needs. We have laid out a number of recommendations based on this. Number one is sustaining SDG7 capacity building. Continue focus on capacity building on localizing clean and renewable energy at the local level, recognizing the existing interests amongst the local governments and local government associations on the issues. And then we would like to recommend improved targeting of SDG7 learning course design. As we can see, cities learn differently. What they need more, what they would like more to have is to have more practical step-by-step guidance, roadmap preparation assistance, and decision-making support tools so that the local governments and cities can take action, can plan, and can strategize their activities ranging from planning, implementation, monitoring, evaluation, and involving a whole of the society, taking into consideration the preferences as well as the perspective at the local level. We also would like to recommend facilitating peer-to-peer initiative. As mentioned before, many local governments have preference to learn from each other and through practical collaboration and documented proven case studies. It is recommended to have more interactive peer-to-peer learning spaces, interactive spaces, supported with easy access to database of case studies. We would like to also recommend the connecting local action to funding opportunities. So improving achievement in access to modern and renewable energy as well as in energy efficiency requires increased funding. As we can see as well from the IEA report, public funding will not be enough to cater for the need for infrastructure. So this is where we can look at how to include not just public funding but also private funding in investment for the infrastructure. And last, we have advancing the local narrative and advocacy. This is an ongoing activity, and for UCLG ASPAC, this is pretty much at the core of our existence. We would like to see more of the local governments facilitated, especially at the mayoral level, on how to advocate and advance local narrative on behalf of the local government to national and global levels. This is to ensure that the alignment of SDG7 effort at the national and global level is aligned to the priorities and realities at the local level. That's it from me. Thank you very much. If you have any question, please write it on the chat and we'll discuss it if we have time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Maizura, for your excellent presentation. It was really good for all of us and for ESCAP as well to really hear the voices of cities through this survey. And again, thank you very much for UCLG ASPAC to organizing this effort and to all the cities who took the time and really responded to our questions. It was very important for us to know the needs and preferences in terms of capacity building of cities in the region. And we really did our best to take them into account in the development of the e-learning program on SDG7 localization, which Maizura already mentioned several times through her presentation. We're a little bit over time, so I will guide you through the e-learning program, which we were talking about today very quickly. And I saw some of you already asked some questions in the chat. We might not have time to answer them verbally, but me and Maizura will definitely respond in the chat box. So please feel free to continue sending us your questions. We'll have one more Q&A session at the end of the workshop. So given that the situation of pandemic really limited the support which ESCAP and our partners could offer to cities and national governments due to the travel restrictions and other limitations, we saw e-learning as one of the great opportunities to still engage with the local and national governments and offer capacity building at the comfort of their own space without need to travel and take any trainings or workshops. That's why we put the effort and also learned from cities on their needs to develop actually 2 e-learning courses. One is on sustainable energy transition roadmap development, which is still in the development, but will be launched very soon. My colleague Anis Zaman will say a few more words about it in the panel session. And the other course which we are focusing on today is on SDG7 localization. It is already available online, and I will quickly guide you through the structure of the course. So I hope you remember this slide from my previous presentation on SDG7 localization indicators, the 7 key areas which were identified throughout our research regarding SDG7 localization process. So the e-learning program is aligned to these 7 areas. We have 8 modules which consider these areas, starting with introduction to Agenda 2030 and the importance of SDG localization. And then we're going basically looking more in depth on each area, starting with policy and enabling environment and institutions on SDG7 localization, SDG7 localization data monitoring, stakeholder engagement, budgeting and finance, awareness and capacity building, implementation strategies, looking at energy access, renewable energy and energy efficiency solutions for cities, and very importantly, linkages between SDG7 and other SDGs. So this is the structure of the e-learning course, which you will see if you follow the link. I will also post the link on in the chat. You can register, enroll to any of the modules and start learning at any time. And as you can see, the modules are kind of separate courses in themselves. You don't have to start with module 1. You can pick any topic you are interested in and start from that. Each module contains several lectures. They're pre-recorded lectures by different experts who contributed to the development of this course. And at the end of each module, we have an assessment quiz, which is a short assessment questionnaire with different questions related to the content of each module. You need to get 80% correct answers to pass the module. And at the end of each module, you can obtain a certificate. So actually, it's one course consisting of 8 little courses, and you can have a certificate reflecting which modules you completed. This course would have not been possible without our partners and contributors. You can see them on the slide. We reached out to a number of institutions who are very active in sustainable energy space, and they were very kind to provide their inputs and slides and time and review our content. So it's really a joint product across many experts, and we are very thankful to all of them for all the inputs. We hope to see you soon on our e-learning portal, and please reach out to us if you have any questions, or if you have any challenges in joining, or if you have a recommendation to other courses we should work on. So, thank you very much. With that, I will conclude the presentation. And as I mentioned, I think we're a little bit over time, so I will take all the questions in the chat box. And with that, I will hand over to the next part of our workshop, which will be led by my colleague Anis Zaman. Anis, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Sneha. Just a second. So I will start with my presentation. Let me share my screen. I hope you all can see my screen. So good afternoon to everyone. It's a great pleasure to be able to speak in this launch event. As Ksenia mentioned in her presentation, that ESCAP has developed 3 subnational roadmaps, and these are for City of Jakarta, Iskandar, Malaysia, and City of Kauai in the Philippines. So in this presentation, I will briefly discuss the key findings and some policy recommendations. So before I begin, I would like to make this note here that although the SDG7 targets are national targets, these 3 cities and authorities have been very progressive, and they wanted to develop their sustainable energy transition roadmap in a way that also aligns with the SDG7 targets. And by this, they wanted to ensure that they are not only making a difference at the local level, but also wanted to contribute to the global goals and targets. So I'm not going to go into the details of this SDG7 targets, as I would assume that most of our audience are familiar with this. But in case you are not, you will have this presentation after the workshop, so you can go to the links given at the bottom of the slide to know more about the targets. The Sustainable Energy Transition Roadmaps help the cities by supporting the development of enabling policies that would help achieve sustainable energy transition targets and indicators. One of the key indicators is to enhance the renewable energy development and its use at the local level. The roadmaps also examine the potential for cities to increase its ambition in the energy sector. This can include, for example, decarbonization of the power sector, which can be done by increasing renewable energy share in power supply. The roadmap also examines the potential of cities to set a target for net zero carbon over a longer term period, say for 2050. So the task actually requires an integrated tool that has the ability to undertake a holistic energy planning by covering all sectors and end users. Eventually it needs to perform technical analysis, which is energy and emissions modeling, economic analysis, preference is given to least cost approaches, policy analysis that is required to identify policies that are appropriate to the local context. So to support this analysis, ESCAP has developed the National Expert SDG tool for energy planning to support this roadmap development. So here is an example of the Sustainable Energy Transition Roadmap that has been developed for the City of Jakarta. The roadmap identified several opportunities for energy efficiency improvement in the city, and that covers all economic sectors. And diving deep, the roadmap quantified the amount of energy that can be saved, not only from each sector, but also by technologies and measures and interventions. This way, it helped the city to identify the pathway to achieve its energy efficiency improvement target. As you may be aware that the transport sector is one of the biggest challenges when it comes to energy supply and use in the city of Jakarta. It not only produces greenhouse gas emissions, but also it is a major cause of air quality, poor air quality in the city. The sustainable transport scenario of the roadmap investigated various options to reduce energy consumption, and some of the recommendations have been to, for example, increase the fuel economy standards, accelerate the model shift, such as moving from private use of private car use to public transport. We must acknowledge here that the city of Jakarta has been implementing the world's largest BRT system, which will ultimately see a big change in the transport sector. So this expected change has been taken into consideration when we develop these roadmaps and the scenarios. The other recommendation was to increase non-motorized mobility, such as by constructing dedicated bicycle paths and encouraging daily commuters to use bicycle rather than using their private cars. The city recently piloted a bicycle commuting program and has received a good response from the citizen, which is an indication that this avenue needs to be really further strengthened. The roadmap looked at the potential for the city to embark on the journey towards a net zero target, which appeared to be both technically and economically feasible. This presented several recommendations, which are backed by in-depth analysis to achieve net zero target in energy sector, in each sector. So those recommendations include, for example, gradually switching from LPG cooking stove to high efficient induction type electric cooking stove, replacing its large fleet of conventional motorbikes with electric versions, and introducing non-motorized transportation such as bicycle, the one that I just mentioned. And that will not only reduce energy, but also create a better living space for the city dwellers. The roadmap also compared the cost of different power supply options and found that a higher share of renewable energy, which is necessary for net zero, and it is cheaper than the current practice. So looking at the roadmap for Iskandar, Malaysia, so similar roadmap we have developed for Iskandar Regional Development Authority in Malaysia. The roadmap helped to identify technological options to achieve its renewable energy share, which is 12% by 2025. Some of the recommended interventions include using its waste resources to generate part of its electricity demand. I think there are some works already being undertaken in Iskandar, Malaysia along this line, and to increase distributed solar power generation capacity within the region. The roadmap found that by implementing the recommended mechanisms, the authority will have a large net benefit, which is much higher than the current practice. There are ample opportunities for Iskandar, Malaysia to reduce its energy consumption by increasing efforts to energy efficiency, but particularly the industry and commercial sector have the highest potential. The roadmap not only identified sectoral potential, but also provided details of each of the interventions and measures to be specific with quantified numbers for energy savings and economic savings, financial savings. Looking at the roadmap for City of Kawan, it provided information on how to close the gap in energy access for both access to electricity and access to clean cooking fuel. When it comes to energy efficiency improvement, the roadmap provided details of sectoral potential with specific measures. For example, for the road transport sector, it recommended to encourage the use of public transport and electric vehicles. For the commercial sector, enforcement of green building code to all new buildings would be very effective. And finally, for the residential sector, phasing out of inefficient lighting and cooking appliances has been identified to be a reasonable approach. So in relation to the net zero pathway, the roadmap recommends some specific measures for the city to consider. These interventions are similar to what have been found in the sustainable energy scenario, but with higher ambitions. They include, for example, gradual retirement of conventional vehicles which can be done by electrification of all new vehicles. The city should consider mandating green building code to all commercial buildings, irrespective of their sizes, and encouraging installation of solar PV rooftop on residential buildings in alignment with the national policy. The roadmap also identified an emission reduction target that the city should consider. So you can see there is quite a bit of very in-depth analysis and findings and recommendations that came out of all these three roadmaps. In addition to producing the roadmap documents, which you have seen the cover pages, and at the bottom of this slide, you will see those roadmaps you can access online. You can download, you can view. But in addition to those, this initiative produces an online portal. So this is a great kind of a facility to view and download all the data and key results and findings, including the recommendations. It also allows the viewers to see how will the final results will be in different scenarios. So by 2030, so those can be viewed for different cities. As you can log in, so login password can be available by requesting ESCAP, and some of the city portals are already in the public domain. So just to finish with the next step, capacity building tool that is upcoming, as Ksenia mentioned, that will be available sometime soon. We are working on it. The tool has been, the capacity building tool has been finalized. It is just a matter of hosting on the website. So it will take probably a couple of months. It will provide knowledge of step-by-step process of developing sustainable energy transition roadmap, which will include data collection, data verification and validation, energy and emissions modeling using the low emissions analysis platform, in short LEAP, which many of you might know, economic analysis, policy analysis, and also undertake stakeholder consultation workshop, stakeholder consultations. So all these will be coming up shortly. Okay, I think I covered this. So there's, okay, I think it is doubling. Yeah, so it has been covered. So that's all from my side. Thank you, and I'll be happy to take any question you may have, or you can just write in the chat box, and we'll be able to answer your questions sometime soon. So thank you from me. Yeah, shall I continue to the next event, or how do you want to do it?
Thank you, Anis. Go on and start the panel discussion.
Will do. Thank you. Okay, it's again me. Let me start with saying good afternoon to you again. So today we have with us three distinguished panelists who are also highly experienced in sustainable energy policy and strategy making. These panelists are also representing the three cities with which ESCAP has collaborated and developed sustainable energy transition roadmaps. So it would be a great opportunity to learn about their experience and getting to know some of the insights that they may have. So before I start the discussion, please allow me to introduce our panelists. So we have with us Mayor Bernard Justino. As an introduction to the Mayor, and the city, under the leadership of Mayor Bernard, the city of Kawan has risen to a great height. Kawan City is the first smarter city of the Philippines, as recognized by, excuse me, by the Department of Science and Technology in 2015. Along with this, they have been advocating in localizing the UN SDGs with the vision of having a smart and sustainable Kawan city. The city has also completed the development of Sustainable Energy Transition Roadmap in collaboration with ESCAP. A launch event will be held sometime soon to publish this roadmap. Then we have Ms. Maimuna Jaffer. Maimuna Jaffer is one of the directors of Iskandar Regional Development Authority in Malaysia. She leads the Smart City team for Johor Bahru in the ASEAN Smart City Network Program Alliances. Maimuna is currently the Vice President for Malaysia Green Building Council Southern Chapter. She led Iskandar Malaysia to become a pilot project for the United Nations Energy Efficiency Acceleration Program. And in 2015, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology selected Maimuna as one of the leading female faces in sustainability. And finally, we have Dr. Nasruddin Joko Surjono. And Dr. Surjono is the head of Regional Development Planning Agency, DKI, Jakarta Province. He is an experienced policy director with a demonstrated history of working in the public policy industry, skilled in analytical analysis, governance, econometrics, and international relations. Dr. Surjono has a PhD in economics from the University of Indonesia. Now, welcome to all the panelists. It's such a great pleasure to have you all here. So let's get started. So as I mentioned in my presentation, that these cities are so progressive that they wanted to align their sustainable energy transition roadmap with SDG7 to contribute to the global goals and targets. And they must have identified that SDG7 is very important to shape the energy transition at the local level. So my first question to the panelists is, how important are the SDG7 targets in shaping the sustainable energy transition pathway for cities? So may I kindly invite Mayor Bernard to reflect on this particular topic. Your reflection and your insights would be really helpful.
Thank you very much, Anis, and to everyone present this afternoon. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to Kawan City to share our humble experience. First of all, it's very important, aside from being aligned with our advocacy on localizing the SDGs, the SDG targets or having the roadmap gives us a glimpse or a snapshot on what we can do and what we should do to be able to reach net zero. So it has really tremendously impacted our life and our direction towards attaining a smart and sustainable city.
Thank you, Mayor Bernard. So that's really wonderful. So as you mentioned, that this roadmap has given you the direction to the net zero, to reaching net zero in future. And one of the avenues that to have SDG7, to align with the SDG7, that's probably helps progressing towards that path. So I will turn to Ms. Maimuna now with the same question: how important are the SDG7 targets in shaping the sustainable energy transition pathway for cities? If you could elaborate some of the experiences that you had in shaping your local targets. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Anis, for the question. As you know, Iskandar Malaysia is actually a sub-national region, and we are actually a fast-growing economic region, and we are actually driven by our comprehensive development plan that focus on what we call holistic ecosystem, looking at sustainability, that balance between economy, social, and environment, and we have a vision to become a metropolis of international standing. So I think when we talk about SDG 7, we need to measure our outcome to ensure that we are in the right path. So not only SDG 7, we also measure other SDGs as well. So SDG 7 targets allows us to understand our local standing in comparative to other cities. I mean, becoming a metropolis city, you need to compare yourself with another cities as well. So in 2010, we also launched our low carbon society blueprint, and we have actually put a commitment to reduce 58% of GHG emission intensity based on that year baseline. So we acknowledge that being a economic region development region, if we do nothing, our electric consumption will actually escalate threefold from where we started in 2010 baseline. So we have set up targets to reduce the energy consumption by 30%. And I think just now Anis mentioned about the targets that we have for renewable energy. So this SDG 7 exercise actually provide us the opportunities to review our actions moving forward and provide us a roadmap and action plans to meet the targets that we have actually commit in year 2010. So our greenhouse gases inventory for Iskandar Malaysia also we monitor year to year. And in 2017, we have managed to reduce about 12.9% compared to 2010 emission. And some of this contribution to the carbon emission, of course, is energy, besides transportation and industry. So now we feel that if we focus on energy, then we should actually manage to give the committed carbon GHG emission that we want to target by year 2025. So that's why SDG7 is very important to us. Yeah. Back to you, Anis.
Thank you, Maimuna. That's wonderful. So it's great, so great to hear that SDG7, how SDG7 helped you to really shape the SDG transition roadmap. So a couple of points that you have mentioned, which are very important, is that it allows you to understand what target and what's goal you need to set to really build the local profile, and also to understand, to review the actions that you need to put forward for moving future. So that's really interesting. So thank you, Maimuna, again. So I'll come back to you again with other question, but let me just turn to Dr. Sargiono. Sir, if I can ask you the same question. So how important you think the SDG7 targets in shaping the sustainable energy transition pathway for your city? How it has been helpful? Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you, Anis. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Cities should lead the way in the against unsustainable practices in urban development, and cities surely have been the growth machine upon which our civilization is built, especially with the continuation of urbanization and economic growth. And as a responsibility, now cities should radically transform themselves, or ourselves to be exact, into sustainable growth centers. Affordable and clean energy has been deemed as central to the achievement of both the 2030 Agenda and Paris Agreement on climate change, to identify area for action and improvement in order to accelerate and make the SDG7 localization process more efficient and impactful. It is important to understand the local context of each city and the effort related to sustainable energy that have already been made. In developing countries like Indonesia, energy sources mostly come from non-renewable energy such as coal, fossil fuel, and natural gas. This unsustainable energy leads to carbon emission and air pollution. In fact, Jakarta emitted around 57 million tons, 554,390 tons of CO2 equivalent in 2018. The emissions come from electricity energy consumption, direct emission sources such as transportation, commercial, household, power plants, and waste and agriculture, forestry, and other land use. Energy plays an essential and crucial role in achieving all SDG goals because it is closely related to factors that encourage the achievement of other SDGs goals. For instance, with the existence of sustainable energy that reaches the entire community, the quality of education can be improved considering that the current implementation of education is very dependent on the advance in information technology, which is, of course, is also very much determined by the supply of energy to power the gadget. People cannot do the distance learning that is commonly used during current pandemic without the availability of sufficient energy. The quality of education is also influenced by the condition of teachers and students. Without suffering pollution, they will be healthier and can carry out the teaching and learning process better. This is just one example that illustrates how important energy is for achieving the other SDGs goals. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sarjana. So that's wonderful. So we all know that the city of Jakarta is a very big city in our region, and it has it is probably a powerhouse of economy, Indonesian economy. So it has a great role in the region as well. And you mentioned about the Sustainable Growth Center, which is very important to build the city that way. And understanding the local context, as you mentioned, is that's why the SDG7 comes into play. So that is also important. And the final thing that you mentioned about making the city like so that it improves the living condition of the people in the city. So that's also very important. And everywhere the SDG7 comes into play. So let me now go back to Maimuna. So if I can ask you, what are the kind of activities and that your organization is undertaking to build the sustainable energy transition pathway at the local level? So if you could just share some activities that you are doing, so that would be really helpful for us. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. I think I mentioned just now that industry and transportation are two key sectors that actually contributed to the increase of this energy consumption. So IRDA has many ongoing programs, but to note that we also assist the industry sectors, meaning that we have actually developed what we call a green economy guideline for industries. And we also engage them advocating for the industry sector to practice energy audit with measured recommendation. And in an instant, we also have a program with UNEP on the district energy program, looking at how some of the commercial buildings or some of the industry can actually use district cooling system to actually make their energy more efficient. And I think for information, for transportation, we are actually implementing our bus rapid transit system as our main public transport. And we are looking at, for a start, maybe about 20% will be EV buses. And we believe that with the EV buses, energy consumption in the transport sector actually is projected to decrease, and perhaps it can allow about estimation about 35% reduction compared to the normal buses. So I guess we also have our challenge. So the challenge is how do we move people from using private vehicular to public transport. So I guess some of these challenges are actually similar to other cities as well. But based on our engagement, communities are saying that they will move to public transport if the services are reliable as well as affordable. I think for Malaysia, for example, we are looking at how we can actually provide a very effective public transportation so that people want to use the public transport. So in order to facilitate this, we have actually developed what we call a Smart Integrated Mobility Management System Framework. This is under the Global Future Cities program that provide ITS solution to address this community's concern. So I think when we embarked or completed our BRT in year 2023, so this will be part of the integration that we will do. On another note, for other building industry, in support of green building GBI, we have our own localized tools such as CASB. This is something that we work together with our Japanese counterpart to rate building sustainability and energy. And of course, energy is the main component. So IRDA together with partners from our solar service providers, we will continuously engage and plan and facilitate suitable renewable energy projects in the region. And we also promote energy management assessment in local councils.
Indonesian assessment.
And of course, our main challenge to this is how we can make green building initiative as mandatory, yeah, because we are still doing it as a volunteer from the developer and so forth. So if we can do this, then I think we can better manage our energy consumption. And of course, if we want to move towards maybe district cooling and so forth, we need to actually standardize or regulate the centralized utility or district cooling, because at the moment we are not doing it. So the rate can be different from one place to another, and it's difficult to actually manage the supply and demand because again, it is not mandatory. So people can actually not subscribing to this initiative. So I guess the end game for Iskandar Malaysia is actually how we can actually reduce this greenhouse gas emission, and we believe that all the initiative that we are doing targeting on energy, we hopefully that we can actually achieve our GHG reduction. Yeah.
That's great. Thank you, Maimuna. Those are quite a range of activities that you are doing. So all of them are really good. I have a couple of questions, but I'll come back to you later. So let me get to Mayor Bernard and to listen what City of Kawai is doing in relation to the sustainable energy transition. If you could just name a few activities. I'm sure you are doing a lot, but just a couple of activities that you would like to let us know.
Yeah, thank you, Anis. Your recommendation, the next step recommendation on adopting an ordinance for the green building, that's one of the things we did already. And another is we came out with an ordinance on incentivizing the use of renewable energies in small, medium enterprises. Our national government has not really been keen on incentivizing on a local level or a small level. And that's why we came out with that ordinance to incentivize them. And a part of that, our strengthening of our enhancement of our smart mobility on the use of e-vehicles, our hybrid electric road train is there, the use of e-tricycles. We've already installed our charging in minutes back in 2016. But they're really, there's still a big challenge that faces us. I mean, the shift to habit, any person's shift to habit is definitely a major challenge. It's a constant challenge that we are facing, and I think it's one of the things that needs to be addressed as well in our journey to having a sort of sustainable and sustainable energy roadmap. I think every citizen should be part of this program, should be part of this journey. So I think slowly but surely, aside from the policies that we've been doing, it's really the information, the awareness of the people, of the citizens on how important it is for us to be able to shift our old habits to attaining a sustainable energy. Thank you, Anis.
Thank you, Mayor Bernard. That's wonderful. So yeah, we have already mentioned some of the challenges. I'm sure those are very important, but I will come back to you with the challenge just in a while. But let me just go to Dr. Surjano, asking the same question. If you could just name a few activities that the city of Jakarta is undertaking in relation to energy transition. Thank you.
Thank you, Anis. Jakarta has since 2009 set a 30% greenhouse gas emission reduction target, which we hope to achieve by 2030. We have translated the target into a set of detailed sectoral target and action in 2012. Mainstream them into the city's programs and activities, including the most current long and mid-term development plans. We have analyzed that the government program under our authority will only cover half of the target. While this is our biggest challenge, we fully realize that action should indeed be collective effort from government, private sector, and civil society. Hence, we classify action based on collaborative approach as stated in our SDGs Regional Action Plan. Various effort, initiatives, and programs have been made to move toward a sustainable energy transition. The key action to make this happen is internalizing policy related to energy and emission reduction into regulation and planning document. We have issued some legal document that regulate regional spatial plan in 2030, regional action plan for reducing greenhouse gas emission, green building, climate change mitigation and adaptation working team, the development of climate village program, and air quality control. Implementation of the regulation has had positive impact on the SDGs goal achievement. Realizing how transportation sectors has been the dominant contributor for worsening the air quality, we, the Jakarta government, focuses on expanding more efficient and integrated modes of mobility with massive pedestrian way construction, building bike lane across the city, expanding MRT, BRT, LRT network, plus transforming all our diesel buses to the electric buses, and implementation of low emission zone. We are happy to say that there had been a breakthrough as the public transport user increased up to 82% from 2017 to 2019. In 2021, we were honored to first place at the 2021 Sustainable Transportation Award. It is important to note that the program's success can be accelerated through collaboration with international partners and initiatives in the global community. For example, with the national government for promoting biodiesel, green fuel, and also renewable power plant, with the private sector to push them follow the building permit of more efficient energy on building construction through the Green Building Initiative, a project investment utilizing clean energy and energy saving. At community level, we have rolled out several actions. First, Climate Village program in 83 neighborhood units in 2018, and we'll scale this up to hopefully cover all area of Jakarta by 2022. Waste bank, where currently there are 1,698 waste banks in Jakarta, and figure from 2017 show that reduction of GHG from waste composting is 1,688 ton CO2 equivalent. And thirdly, educating and encouraging the use of clean cooking technology in slum and informal settlement. Importance of house design with cross ventilation and natural lighting, and also saving energy at every household. One of the key success of the effort is collaboration between government with group of 10 households for empowerment of family welfare. Currently 70,902 in Jakarta. It basically is an institution to empower activity for women and housewives, which main programs include sustainable environment, sanitation, and health plan. This is what makes Jakarta Sustainable Energy Action inclusive, and we commit to placing inclusivity at the center of policymaking. Not only making sure that those most vulnerable are benefiting from our collective action, but to actually put them as the subject from whom we could all learn about more sustainable ways of living. That should be the agenda for us, city, carving sustainable action based on our own strength that lie in our local wisdom. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sarja. You have really mentioned very good points and the activities that are being undertaken. So I can see that all of you have also, while talking about the activities, you have mentioned about that some of the challenges, which was my next question also. But I can come back with some specific questions if there is time. But I would like to really open the floor at this point just for 3 quick questions to the panelists, if there are any. So if you could just raise your hand if you would like to ask a question to any of the panelists or all of the panelists, that would be really wonderful. And we can respond to that. Otherwise, we'll just finish it with the last question that we have. Is there anybody who would like to ask any question to any of the panelists? Okay, so doesn't look like that there is anybody who would like to ask the question. Probably they can send by email. Well, we'll need to be very quick. So just going back to Mayor Barnard again. So you mentioned about smart mobility and the big challenge about really convincing people to leave their old habit and come to the new way. That's a big challenge, I understand, but are you getting any support from the federal agency or any other agencies to really ease your effort in this?
Unfortunately, no, there's no support from the national government for us to push for our smart mobility project. However, there's one agency, which is the Department of Science and Technology, that helped us with this hybrid electric road train. However, in terms of subsidizing, what we need is a subsidy, for example, for the e-tricycles, for our tricycles to have a shift on using e-tricycles. That needs to be seen. And on the local level, the least that we could do is open up franchises that are exclusively for e-vehicles or e-tricycles. And yet, but there's still a big challenge. The cost of an e-tricycle is really still tremendously high. That they cannot easily shift to this new form of tricycle or using e-tricycle.
That's very well said. Thank you, Mayor Bernard. So going to Dr. Sarjono, sir, if I can just quickly ask, you mentioned about the similar kind of challenge in attracting people to public transport. Is there any program that you are implementing, or is there any support from the federal government in relation to increasing the public acceptance on using public transport?
Thank you. Actually, our local government also supported by central government related with the financing to because like when we central government create MRT, 51% come from local government and 49% come the fund come from central government. So when we build the infrastructure, the central government also support us with financial support like that. And also not only MRT, LRT, now also central government support to build the infrastructure of LRT from Bogor, southern part of Jakarta, to Jakarta. So they also support us with the financing. And I believe that it is generally admitted that the leapfrogging to full sustainable energy utilization requires quite amount of budget to support that. And of course, we need support from central government on this case.
Yeah, certainly. I totally agree with that. So without central government support, it's very difficult to really move forward. So just finishing up with Maimuna, coming back to you. So you mentioned a couple of challenges, but going to one of the activities that you mentioned for the industry sector was energy audit. So I would like to know, is this mandatory, or if it is not mandatory, then are the industries really taking up the energy audits and putting some actions forward?
For the industry, actually, it is mandatory because at the moment, our energy commissioner is actually monitoring it. So there are certain energy consumption that they have to adhere to, the maximum in respective to the production that they produce in their industry. So if they actually go beyond the minimum energy consumption that they are supposed to control in that month, then there will be penalty, and they need to engage an energy manager to see how that industry can actually reduce the electricity consumption in comparative to the production that they are doing. So I think industry, of course, it is being monitored by our energy commissioner at the moment. So I think I mentioned just now, I'm talking more about the commercial buildings, which currently most of the green buildings effort are actually being done voluntarily. So it will be good if it is a mandatory, so that we can actually manage this electricity consumption. Yeah.
Absolutely, I totally agree. But making mandatory will make things easy for you. But again, making mandatory, you might really face some judicial or some law enforcement process. But yeah, that will need to be worked out. So we are already running over time. So I can just see one hand up from team. Can you please quickly pose your question?
Thank you, everybody. Thanks for the opportunity. I just wondered, there's been a lot of talk in this session about transport, and I just wondered, from a perspective of cities, whether there's been growing interest in, we hear about public transport, micro-mobility. Has there been much growing interest in mobility as a service to try and get people from A to B with a myriad of transport options to try and help solve the challenge of transport in some of these really congested cities?
Thank you, Tim. Anyone would like to take this up? Mayor Barnard or Maimuna or Dr. Sarjona, anyone?
I guess when we talk about transportation, this is something like for the ASEAN cities, it's always like you need to actually provide the public transportation facilities before we embark on, perhaps we talk about restriction zone, like when you enter the city, you have to pay some tolls, something like that. So I think for my region, the thing is that we are working on this bus rapid transit, and we feel that with the coverage of the main trunk and the feeder buses, it should be able to cover about 90% of the total Iskandar Malaysia region. So once we achieve this coverage that we want, then maybe after that we talk about this restriction zone, so that we can get our model shift from, I think now 20% public transportation and 80% private vehicle to perhaps 50%, so that some of this initiative or contribution to this SDG7 can be seen having that model split of 50%. Yeah.
Thank you, Maimuna. Thank you for your great response. I hope that answers Tim's questions, but yeah, we'll have to wrap it up now. We are already over time. I think everyone is waiting, but let me thank all our panelists. Mayor Bernard, Dr. Sarjano, and Ms. Maimuna. Thank you all. It has been a great opportunity, great pleasure to have you in the panel, and thank you for your contributions. I will hand over back to Ksenia.
Thank you, Anis.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much to all panelists. It was an amazingly interesting discussion to hear from the actual cities, from our dear deep dives. Thank you so much for all your work with us over the course of past year. And as Anis mentioned, the roadmaps for these cities and subnational region is available online. So if any other cities or experts want to learn from those documents, I think Anis can share the link. So thank you very much. We're a bit over time, so we are moving to our final session of the workshop. We have two keynotes from our partner organizations. And as we have been focusing on Asia and the Pacific region for most of the workshop, now we zoom out to other regions as well and hear from good practices from cities from other regions. So with that, I would like to give the floor to our first keynote speaker, Ms. Paula Deda, Director, Forest, Land and Housing Division of United Nations Economic Commission for Europe. Thank you very much, Ms. Deda. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Ksenia. Can you hear me well?
Very well, thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for this invitation. Thank the organizers, ESCAP, UNEP, and the UCLG for organizing this launch event. I was following from the beginning, is very much interesting. And indeed, I'm gonna give you a perspective from a different region, although of course we share a lot of countries with ESCAP, as well as sort of zooming out a little bit from SDG7 to the overall urban planning scene. I believe you are going to share the presentation, if I'm not wrong. And the title is Smart and Sustainable Urban Strategies. So this is what we want to share with you, this approach that we have in ECE to look at this smart and sustainability of cities. I don't see the presentation on the screen. I hope that this will be soon shared. Well, my first point is really about city planning and the fact that cities are major consumers of energy and contributors to GHG emissions. At the same time, as we know, urban areas, you can go to the next, please. Urban areas offer great opportunities for the achievement of all the SDGs and of course also of the SDG7. Our work on smart sustainable cities supports addressing the current and future challenge of sustainable energy transition in cities and improve the way cities function in general. Smartness, as you know, is related really to the digitalization, and the energy and infrastructure support is actually essential for this. Just let me mention one project in particular. UNECE and UN Habitat join forces on a UN DA project, Development Account project, that is called Smart Sustainable Cities for the 2030 Agenda on Sustainable Development and the new urban agenda in the UNECE region. And this is really a project supporting the transition of cities towards becoming smarter and sustainable. And this includes, of course, as a primary issue, sustainable energy transitions. So promoting energy efficiency and the use of renewable resources of energies in cities. The project also supports cities in developing their smart, sustainable city profiles and assess progress toward the achievement of all SDGs at the city level. I'll come back on the issue of indicators a bit later. And because of course these city profiles are based on data and indicators, which we developed through the key performance indicators for smart and sustainable cities, which were developed by UNECE and ITU and are used by several UN organizations. Just to let you know, in 2020 and 2021, we targeted 4 cities for this KPI evaluation. We had Almaty in Kazakhstan, Bishkek in Kyrgyzstan, Tbilisi in Georgia, and Podgorica in Montenegro. Next one, please. Now, very important is what I mentioned, the issue of key performance indicators for smart sustainable cities. These indicators were developed to provide cities really with a consistent and rather standardized method to collect data and measure performance and progress to the achievement of SDGs, becoming smarter, and of course, becoming more sustainable. They're really a tool to measure progress in these areas. And just for you to have an idea of how these indicators also address energy, we have put on a list on the slide. For instance, we have indicators looking at electricity system outage frequency, the electricity system outage time, access to electricity, public building energy consumption, and renewable energy consumption. And the measurement of these indicators, of course, tells us a lot about the smartness of the city, of course, linked to the overall issue of digitalization. Next one, please. Now, nothing, as you know very well, of what we envisage, and including the specific implementation of SDGs, happens without innovative finance. And this is essential for the process of development of smart city profiles, that we would like to see them resulting in a tangible set of recommendations for the city to accelerate progress to the SDGs. And for this, international financial institutions are absolutely essential to support cities in the implementation of these recommendations, at least those cities that need that type of help and that cannot achieve it themselves. And let me give you a few examples of what we are working on here for the city of Bishkek in Kyrgyzstan, for which UNICE, as I mentioned, has completely a city profile. UNICE now is working with the Cities Development Initiative for Asia, which is a multi-donor trust fund managed by the Asian Development Bank and supporting the city in the preparation of investment projects based on the recommendations of the city profile. So, I mean, here is really to give you the link from the data analysis, the indicators, the measurement, the city profile, and then finance and action. The projects and the preparation will support the transformation of the city informal settlements also into smart sustainable cities districts, and will provide a grant for technical assistance to develop a project preparation study to help development all the documentation based on the city profile recommendations needed for the project to be bankable. I think this is an essential point which I would say should underpin all our discussion. How do we make desires becoming reality? And it's really through this step of making our project bankable and so supported by international financing or generated financing locally or to the private sector. Now, another very important point, next slide please, that you have mentioned throughout, but it's important to stress for the localization of SDGs in general is definitely there are definitely voluntary local reviews. Now, based on the cooperation with the cities on the development of smart sustainable cities profile and innovative financing, we definitely see an interest from the city's governments to develop their voluntary local reviews. And VLRs are really an expression of this political commitment of the city's governments to review the process of achieving SDG support and to accelerate the achievement of SDGs. UNICE has developed in this regard some specific guidelines for the development of voluntary local reviews in the UNICE region. And these guidelines contain a comprehensive set of principles and recommendations for concrete steps on how to develop VLRs. It's very important. I mean, there is a lot of commitment to do VLRs, but how do we do it? I think it's important to provide a guide with step by step. Now, what are the guidelines stressing? First of all, the importance of delivering share value creation for citizens on the ground. Then the necessity to link these reviews to existing plans and projects to ensure there is coordinated action and enhance the connection to financing streams at all levels. Then they underline the need, of course, to promote evidence-based approach and evidence-based policies have always been a sort of mantra for ECE through the use of indicators and metrics to measure progress in achieving the SDGs. And finally, to promote the voluntary local reviews as a key and essential tool to support social and economic recovery from COVID-19, which is, you know, the additional challenge that's been put on us also when it comes to cities management, while also reminding, of course, governments to focus on vulnerable groups and to leave no one behind. Now, next, just a snapshot on how we are also next slide, please. A snapshot on what we are working on, what is coming our way, in case any of you would be interested to follow. We are going towards a ministerial meeting in 2 weeks, 6, 7 of October in Geneva and virtual, so it's very easy to connect. Why is this essential? Well, because not only ministers are meeting and sharing their concerns and their achievements on housing and city planning in their countries, but also they are endorsing a regional action plan, which includes some policy propositions, targets, and specific actions to assist governments and cities in addressing the difficulties brought about by COVID-19 and in general for urban planning and affordable housing systems. This action plan has specific provisions, of course, for energy-related matters and encourage energy-efficient housing design, which is, again, one of the essential components of our program, energy efficiency in housing and efficient design, maintenance and retrofitting, of course, that promotes good, efficient use of energy, but also healthy living. Other goals, of course, towards achieving SDG7 in the regional action plan are about increasing efficiency of the administrative procedures overall to reduce hurdles and bottlenecks, provide long-term technical and policy development certainty to market actors, and remove the unnecessary regulatory and procedural barriers to achieving energy efficiency. So let me know if you're interested also in seeing this document. We have it as one of the information documents for the ministerial. We'll be very happy to share it with you. And last but not least, let me mention, next slide, please, our work with the mayors. You are very much aware, most probably, of the first forum of mayors met in 2020, really in the middle. It was October 2020, in the middle of the pandemic. We had 40 mayors sharing their experience and the struggle they had to adapt the city to a new reality. What came out of that meeting was a Geneva Declaration of Mayors endorsed by all of them. And amongst the other goals that the declaration focuses on is the commitment to improve energy efficiency of cities, to save energy and reduce emissions and costs, leading to economic health and environmental benefits. Now, this integration of energy efficiency options into buildings, transport, and urban planning is a key aspect of city growth and the agenda of mayors. We are going to check what they have been doing in some of these areas next year, 4th and 5th of April in Geneva, and I guess still also online. The event is really a platform providing mayors for the possibility of exchanging information of what they are doing and their experience and best practices, but also to see how can they work in a more integrated manner with the United Nations system as a whole. I stop here. I hope I didn't take too much time, but I'd be happy to provide you with any other information. And you see also URLs and barcodes on the screen. So if you want to get more information, please feel free to visit us or, of course, contact us anytime. Thank you, and back to you, Ksenia. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Data, for an excellent presentation. It was really interesting to see how the key messages from our research are also reflected in your work, data, and coming to the bankable projects and how together support cities on that. And I also encourage everyone who listened and who joined today to access those publications. And these are really great resources, even if you're not from UNIC region, from Europe. A lot of guidelines would be applicable in Asia and the Pacific or in any other region you're coming from. Thank you very much, Ms. Data.
Thank you, it was a pleasure. Thank you.
Now it's time for our next and final keynote presentation of this workshop. Handing over to another partner organization of ESCAP, United Nations Environment Program, whom we have been collaborating a lot on SDG7 localization work. And please welcome Mr. Benjamin Hickman, Advisor, District Energy and Cities Initiative, Cities Unit, Energy and Climate Branch, Economy Division of UNEP. Benjamin, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Ksenia, and hi, everybody. I'm just going to share screen. So, yes, thank you for inviting me to this workshop. I was listening in earlier. It's just really interesting hearing all of the different city perspectives and hearing, especially like colleagues like Maimuna that we've worked with a lot, talk about their district energy program. I really think there's a lot of good momentum now for cities to act more on energy, and I heard earlier also about how high on the priority SDG7 is in cities. So it's really great to hear. So I'm based in UN Environment Program in our cities unit, where I work on district energy, but also urban energy in general. And today I'm going to quickly present from UNEP's perspective on this, and also give some examples of how integration in the energy system is already happening in cities. So this, I wanted to show you, and different speakers already touched on it, is part of the energy transition that we're seeing is a real shift from a very centralized energy system where electricity is produced hundreds of kilometers away, or gas is piped from 100 kilometers away to cities, and it's very centralized. It's led by national governments. It's extremely linear, using lots of resources along the way, not very efficient and very siloed. And extremely demand driven. Feedback back up the wire about what kind of demand is there. And we're now seeing a shift globally, and this is being led at different rates in different countries. But if we're going to reach net zero energy emissions by 2050, this really needs to be the model to follow, is we go from a purely centralized model to a hybrid, decentralized, centralized model, with much more room for multi-level governance, and such as local ownership of utilities, and a much more circular model that's resource efficient. So sharing energy between different end uses, capturing different waste resources to use them for energy. And by creating this circular, obviously highly interlinked model, is actually also improving the resilience of the energy system. And the cross-sectoral efficiencies improve overall primary energy efficiency, which is going to be really important for keeping the cost of energy down, especially as we transition everything to electricity. We really need to look at how to ensure energy efficiency, so consumers aren't paying too high a price for energy. And as opposed to being purely demand driven, we're now seeing much more smart balancing of supply and demand, with things like smart grids, smart metering. And so what role do cities have in all of that? Well, the transition from that centralized model to a much more decentralized circular model really has to happen in cities. And cities are already leading the way in terms of sector integration, and they're using things like their planning capacity, the fact that they're able to coordinate different city systems, the fact they're consuming a lot of energy, be that for water, for public transport, but they're also providing a lot of services. So really they're crucial for realizing these cross-sectoral synergies and delivering the integration, which is going to be at the forefront of delivering the energy transition. So we're seeing, and this actually came out, cities were already doing this in ASEAN from the analysis that ESCAP presented. We're already seeing cities integrating energy into their urban planning and design. So building codes which are much more stringent on energy efficiency or requiring renewables on the roof. Same with things like renewables, leaving space for renewables in cities through planning, and also, defining efficiency at the planning level. So, such as defining what kind of efficiency a new urban area needs to have. We're seeing more and more cities undertake energy master planning, which I'll touch on in a second, and linking stakeholders across sectors and utilities. And finally, more finance, and I heard finance come up a few times for this kind of analysis, but cities are able to also facilitate finance for these integrated projects through tendering process and integrated tenders that maybe let a utility provide power, but also cooling or also other services at the same time to unlock the potential of this integration. So it's a few different examples, like things like microgrids in cities. The top one is a microgrid in Delhi, which was launched recently. The second one is a district cooling plant in Malaysia. The third one is a landfill gas capture in the Philippines. So cities are doing these kind of projects which cut across sectors. So landfill gas obviously is linking waste with energy. District cooling is linking buildings with the power system and using thermal storage to help to balance it. And obviously a microgrid is a real decentralization of the centralized power system. So these are the kind of examples that we're starting to see more and more in cities, and we're also trying to promote more and more. At the planning level, I think it's really critical to unlock this kind of these kind of integrated energy systems. We need to have energy planning at the city level, but also at the neighborhood level. So a lot of smart city areas are looking at how they can, be, highly more resilient than the surrounding city, for example, through local power system balancing and local storage. But we need to also have planning that's aligned from the state level to the urban level. So planning that takes for account, for example, how to reduce the energy demand of a city through good urban planning that reduces the need for individual transport and promotes public transport instead. And resilience planning, looking at what role the energy system has in providing resilience for your city, and how could a more integrated energy system deliver that. So things like energy islanding. So if the whole power system of the country or if the whole region goes out, which bits of your city are able to still keep power going? And that's becoming increasingly important globally as climate change has more and more impact. And integrated energy systems can help to keep the lights on in those cases. So things like microgrids, local power generation linked to district cooling, all of these things improve the resilience. Business models and financing that unlock this kind of integration. So letting utilities maybe provide different utility services like power, like water, like cooling, and combining all of these into a kind of integrated offer will let that utility, whether it's public or private, realize these integration, this potential of integration. But that's also different kinds of financing. We're seeing municipal financing of these kind of integrated projects. We're even seeing innovative combinations of utilities joining up with ESCOs to provide a really high efficient service for buildings, for example. So a lot of innovation happening there. A lot of this is blocked, I think, at the national policy level. So we need to promote national policy frameworks that enable cities to take this kind of action. For example, being allowed to own your own utility as a city A lot of countries worldwide let cities do that, but obviously not all countries. So we need to be promoting the national policy that enables cities to take their really front and center role in the energy transition and deliver this integration. And also governance. I think cities' ability to coordinate across the city network in terms of different city systems, but also local communities, even at the neighborhood level, putting up their own energy projects. These are all examples of really innovative governance that we're seeing and need to be promoted. Energy master planning I wanted to touch on. So all cities really need to be developing energy plans for how they're going to be meeting their country's NDC target, but also going beyond and integrating into that things like resilience and energy access as well. So if you have an energy strategy and you have an energy target, developing a detailed energy plan is a good next step. And from globally, it's more and more recognized that if you can do this at a very spatial level, so mapping out energy demand in different areas of the city, even down to the building level, and mapping out energy supply that you might have different renewable energy options, we can develop something called an energy master plan, which really brings out which really identifies these synergies and opportunities to deliver these integrated energy solutions. And I heard Maimouna talking earlier about the district cooling project. So in Iskander, in one city there, we started to develop this energy master plan based on a GIS mapping of buildings' cooling demand. And I think this kind of model really needs to take off in all cities in order for cities to really work out what they can do on energy. And I think the roadmaps that were presented earlier by Anis are a really important first step in that. And I wanted to just finish, because I don't have much time, just a few examples that we've come across in our work when we're preparing case studies. This is Red City. It's I'd say a tier 2 city. And in India, they had a whole program supporting smart cities to put up proposals for how they're going to work across the whole remit of smart, whatever smart means in your different country. But part of that is they had an area-based development plan prepared, which really was about trying to test, sort of maximize the sustainability of a specific area. And it had targets like 80% green buildings in the area. It planned out a district cooling system. It had integrated infrastructure planning, so the power network, the district cooling network, the sewage network were all planned as integrated infrastructure, and it had a high share of renewable energy in the zone. And I think this case that we're still supporting Rajkot on could be a lighthouse project for how to do that kind of area-based development in other cities. Another project we're doing a case study on is an NG project in Singapore with Reed Spore. So it's a microgrid linked to a wind turbine, but it's also using hydrogen for electricity storage and mobility. And it's bringing in, it's basically testing out many different energy storage options and balancing options at the local level. So bringing out a case study hopefully can be helpful for other cities. Kanandani in India, again, I think this shows the power of some real estate companies who are effectively developing full townships. It's not just about cities pushing this integrated energy systems. Real estate developers can as well. And especially if they're building essentially mini cities, they really need to look at how to integrate building efficiency, power supply, cooling supply, and bringing in as much renewables into the area. So we're working closely with Hiranandani to expand their offering from just power supply, which is already quite innovative for India, to include district cooling and other energy services. This is a project in Australia, which is under development now. It's going to be a net zero energy city, generating more renewable energy than it consumes, which for city governments trying to put renewables into their cities is obviously a huge target to try to meet. And if it's able to do that, I think there's a lot of learnings that can come out of it. It's going to use hydrogen, but also things like district cooling as well. all rooftops will have solar, and it's also planning out how to use green spaces to keep the city cool, because it's quite a hot area of Australia, with things like also EV charging stations linked into a local grid, so that there's smart charging infrastructure. This I wanted to show because a lot of people think district cooling is just for commercial buildings. This is the first residential district cooling system in India, in Hyderabad, and we're also doing a case study on this. They're basically providing cooling to about 4 or 5 residential buildings. So yeah, watch this space for that case study. Tokyo is obviously a leader in the kind of energy planning I was mentioning earlier, and using their energy planning system to identify those integrated opportunities. We've already developed a case study on this. They can really link well building efficiency and energy supply at a very spatial level in Tokyo, and they have using a lot of renewables. And I think it's a great case study to show the importance of local energy master planning. And finally, this is a large project under development in China, Sanya Haitang Bay, and it's got a completely integrated energy system providing cooling, heating, hot water and power across the area, and targets for decarbonising it as well. With innovative things like ice battery thermal energy storage, hydropower linked to heat pumps, distributed PV systems, and using artificial intelligence to manage the energy system. And finally, from UNEP side, because it's the high-level dialogue on energy at the moment, we've been collaborating with UN Energy and UN DESA to put together an urban energy compact, which is available on the UN DESA website. And this is really about trying to give a space for cities in the high-level dialogue. So we've prepared a principles document, which I really encourage cities to see, and if you agree with these principles, to sign up to it, and also to submit an energy compact to UN Energy as a local government, and wherever possible, identify actions which include energy targets, but also some of the integrated ideas that I've mentioned here. And off the back of this, we're with partners such as Global Covenant of Mayors, World Economic Forum, the European Commission and Mission Innovation. We're putting together a coalition on urban energy, which is also open to other partners. This is just who we've started with, where we want to link these submissions to also greater support going to cities on this, and use those different organisations to do that. So I really encourage cities to sign up to these principles as a way to sort of stay in touch with us as well on potential support programs to cities linked to this. So the link is there. I'll also put it in the chat as well for cities to see. Thank you very much. And sorry if I spoke too fast. I was trying to keep it to time.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ben. Very interesting examples on integrated urban solutions from different countries and cities. Excellent to see. And I guess it's just a call to our cities as well. If you have an ongoing integrated urban solution project, reach out to Ben. UNEP is collecting various case studies, and it's a good way for you to show your efforts to the world, and of course sign up for energy compacts to show your commitments. That's a very important initiative for local governments to join this high-level dialogue. Thank you very much, Ben. We are at the very end of our meeting, coming to the end, to the dedicated time, about just a couple of minutes left, but I do want to give some opportunity for questions. We have been chatting in the meeting chat, trying to respond to your questions, but maybe someone wants to raise your hand and ask any of the speakers who were sharing very interesting information today. That's the opportunity you have right now. Otherwise, I will pick some questions, unanswered questions from the chat in the time remaining. Okay, I don't see any hands raised. I see a couple of questions in the chat. One is from Team Farrell. That's probably a question to UCOG SPAC colleagues. So maybe Dr. Bernardia or Maizura you could respond to that. I wonder how ESCAP are working with cities. I expect that this organization, ESCAP and others, will be important to share lessons learned from city experiences, not just the successes, but things that didn't work, will be really important to share. Can I ask Maizura or Dr. Bernadia to maybe respond to that?
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you very much for the question. Yes, indeed, we have been working closely with cities and local governments through different kind of activities that include also capacity building, capacity development, and as well as networking and also advocacy, the changes of policy require very strong voices of local and regional governments. This include also, for example, putting the perspective of local governments in the VNR reports. This is also one of the things that we see quite crucial. Of course, we have been working very closely with the partners that include GCOM, Global Conference of Mayors on Climate Change and Energy. We actually the Secretariat of GCOM for Southeast Asia. And then also the Secretariat of ASEAN Mayors Forum. So we are trying to consolidate all these efforts and also having a very good coordinations with different players. And what I think I like to highlight here is that the members of UCLG ASPAC include not only individual cities, but also associations. So I see here a lot of associations join us. Of course, they can spread out this message, this e-learning and tools that are available so that it can reach thousands of cities and local governments. So we've been working very closely with individual local governments as well as the associations. Thank you. I hope it's answered the questions. If not, we will add more in the email.
Nadia, it was a great support from your side to reach out to different cities and member cities of UCLG ASPAC throughout this project. And also ESCAP was working with other city networks. I think this is a great opportunity to engage cities at the regional and international level as well. So thank you. I'll ask once again if there are any hands, if anyone wants to ask a question verbally. Otherwise, I see a question from Casey Tao. Investments for affordable and clean energy can be big, and I wonder whether ESCAP could support smaller cities to work with their national governments for countries like the Philippines, Cambodia, Indonesia, Laos, to apply for funding from the World Bank and ADB. That's an excellent question, Casey. Thank you for that. And I think today we learned that the investment gap, or the gap between the need for project development and the actual access to finance, is one of the greatest barriers in not only in ASEAN but in many regions of the world. And absolutely, ESCAP is interested in supporting any cities. You saw from our city panel that we have been working with a number of cities already, and we are planning to continue to do so on roadmap developments, but also on specific implementation plans, which will be informed by those developed roadmaps. So if any city are interested in working with us and can show the commitment and interest in sustainable energy, we would be really welcoming their expression of interest. And please reach out to me or my colleague Anis, who is leading the work on sustainable energy transition roadmaps. And we will be really happy to discuss the opportunities and further work. So thank you very much for this question. I think we are out of time right now, so I don't want to hold our speakers for longer. Thank you very much, everyone, for staying with us. I will hand over the floor back to Dr. Bernadia to do the closing remarks. But from my side, thank you all for your active participation in this workshop.
Thank you very much, Senia, and of course, big thanks to all speakers and also presenters. I think we got a lot of informations that have been shared by all speakers here. You could see that cities are making actions already. This also, through this energy efficiency, green procurements, as well as transforming those, waste to energy. Just a lot of actions you had already heard from all the speakers today. And what maybe I will be very short because we have been, listening this for quite some time, and I already spoke quite long in the opening. Just want to say here that the cities, when they design this roadmap and interventions that come up with the positive outcomes for SDG7, is also worth noting again and again that these changes do not happen in a vacuum. So this means that improved SDG7 outcome have impacts on the performance of other SDGs. You see also from the survey that SDG7 has been put as a priority compared to other SDGs. So this is quite interesting, even though the cities have some cities have no role or responsibility in energy, but we see that energy is important. We cannot live without having energy in our life. So there is a note of urgency that we must incorporate into our actions at the city level. So I like to once again thanking everyone, thanking all speakers and of course participants. You have seen already that we launched e-learning platform as well as this module. So please make use of those tools and resources. And then if you are representing associations in your countries, spread out this message, disseminate this information to all the members of the national associations. And then the future is in front of us, and then this is also a crossroad for all of us to make really good decisions, because it's never too late, and then we determine the future of our Earth and as well as future climate. So UCLG ASPAC, we really look forward to bringing these tools and resources that we launched today to advance cities' capacity in facing and embracing these changes. And we are not only limiting our support to big cities, but we also, of course, embrace small and medium-sized cities. We call it intermediary cities, not secondary cities, because not city wants to be secondary. So we will be happy, of course, to serve our cities, local governments with the establishment of energy specific space for cities and local governments to come together and learn more. And yes, so we are happy working with ESCAP, of course, and thanks ESCAP, Senia, Anis, and everybody also for make these things happen. This learning modules and learning platform would not have been possible without the strong cooperation of all partners here, ESCAP, UNEP, and then several other organizations. So I wish everyone a very good and very good day, and then stay safe and remain healthy. Yes, we are ready for collaborating with all of you. And Senia, if I can propose, maybe we can have a photo session, but I like to invite everyone once again to give a big applause to all speakers. We can put this clap button and this, if there is a clap button, because we used to have a Zoom not empty. So, but again, from my bottom of heart, thank you so much for the good works of everyone here in promoting the sustainable energy and make sure that our planet is safe and then our planet is secure. So thank you once again. And Senia, we can have a photo session, so hope everybody can switch on the camera if this is possible. And my colleague, I think she's ready to take a photos. But thank you everyone, and especially Senia, and of course my colleagues, Maisura and others, and all the members who join.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bernadia. That's a great idea for everyone who would like to turn on their cameras and take a photo. Please join us. Meanwhile, I just want to make a little household announcement as well. My colleague Sarina posted a link for our evaluation survey. We would really appreciate if you could spend just a couple of minutes to answer a question about this workshop. It will help us out to improve in future and learn from this experience. Thank you very much. So let's proceed to the photo.
Okay. My colleague is ready, I think. And thank you also, Paula, for a great presentation, and of course, Benjamin and everyone. Thanks.
Yes, I have taken the photo.
Okay. Can you count? So how long we need to keep our smiles?
Okay, wait. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. One more, please. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you Pak Joko, terima kasih.
Thank you, everyone.
Ibu Maimuna, Pak Anies, terima kasih.
Terima kasih. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senia.
Thank you.
Oh. Kita kirim. Oke.